Hello, welcome both of you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and so we're going to dig right in. We don't got too much time, but kind of as alluded to, like the curve is flattening. But although COVID is starting to look a bit brighter, there's some stuff that's been happening recently in the news that is maybe not as great. So we've seen police really come to the forefront with the killings of George Floyd, Tony McDade, Breonna Taylor in the U.S., and then here in Canada, Chantel Moore, DeAndre Campbell, and more. And so it's honestly sparked the largest social justice demonstration in history. We've got 18 countries protesting, 70 million people. But at the roots of this movement are really anti-Black racism and white supremacy. And so these aren't isolated things outside of our work. So I'm wondering, for maybe Madison to start, what are some ways you've seen these things appear in tech companies?
So I think a lot of us have, if you've been at a startup, I live in the startup ecosystem, they're predominantly white. And I think that is no matter where you live. I live in a very white city, but there's always a reason for it. And they usually hide it behind it's culture fit. And what you're really saying is, I don't want to hire this person because they're too Black, they're too gay, they're too old, they're too fat, whatever it is. And so instead of us actually talking about the anti-Blackness that exists in the startup world, we just push it under the rug with they're not a culture fit. And I think the thing is, people are scared to talk about it. I know that I talk about it and people think I'm absolutely out of my mind to talk about being Black or to say the word Black. Like, someone literally emailed my company to say I was a racist because I said I was Black on LinkedIn.
It's ridiculous. And yeah, Cornell, would also love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to note that, Black employees, people of color, are experiencing it throughout the entire experience of their employee life cycle. So they're experiencing it from their recruitment all the way into their decision to leave a company. So they're experiencing an onboarding and the interview process, and then within their teams through managers and colleagues as well. And so we're also not creating workplaces that are conducive to the psychological safety of people of color within these tech companies.
So you mentioned a couple things there. I'd like to dig in on kind of the culture. Like, how can you create a better culture for Black employees, and just like any employees in general, to feel included and feel welcomed?
So for me, when I focus on, startups and helping them build their culture, I actually reverse it. Like, I need you to build inclusion before you start like piling on diverse candidates. It's great to be able to say you have a really diverse company, but if you don't know how to treat and lead those people, then you're doing everyone involved a disservice, because they're going to be unhappy. You're going to stunt their career growth, and then they're going to leave. So on your side, you've just messed up your retention. And so I think a piece of it is creating spaces that I don't have to fit into, but teaching people to allow people to come in and take up space. You can't create a space for me when you don't know who I am and what I need. And I think too often we're teaching people that everyone has to be a certain way at work. And so you find people of color and Black people who code switch all day because they have to turn on their phone voice from 9 to 5 just to fit in, and making sure that that doesn't happen. And you need to make sure of that before you start hiring people.
Yeah. Quick, what is code switching before we, yeah.
So it's basically when you try to be that cookie cutter corporate mold. So for me as a Black woman, it would be straightening my hair, it not being blue, making sure that I sound like this all day because on the phone I sound white. And it's just all of these things you do all day, every day to just fit into this mold. And it makes you inherently less good at your job because you spend so much time focusing on, do I sound okay? Do I look okay? What do people think about me? And I think eventually it's really, really traumatic emotionally.
Yeah. I think the thing that we begin to think about too is that people have to be ready to deal with the heightened level of emotion that comes with also acknowledging that you play a role in the systemic oppression of different marginalized groups, right? And so so any form of allyship starts with self-awareness and being comfortable and dealing with the fact that, yep, I have done things that have made people feel like they were not psychologically safe. And so that's a fact. It is what it is. And what do I do then about it to make sure that it doesn't continue happening? Here's the thing. Perfection doesn't exist. And so when it happens, what do I do to go, you know what, that's not cool. We don't do that here. It doesn't align with our values, and that we're ready to address it when it happens.
Amazing.
And I think you have to be really clear with your values. So when something happens and someone posts something online, they're not shocked when you're like, hey, we can't do this. This is not how we feel. You need to make it very clear from day one, anytime you hire someone, what your values are when it comes to diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
I love it. And so we talked a bit about inside the company. Now, what can companies do to mitigate the impact of anti-Black racism and white supremacy externally?
Yeah, I think this is really important because I think most of the time I get the question all the time, why are we talking about this at work? This is an outside external thing. It's like, no, when you think about Amy Cooper, in New York City, who, threatened to call the police on Christian Cooper just for asking her to please put a leash on her dog. Amy Cooper was someone's, boss, was responsible for hiring or firing Black people, evaluating Black people, and creating a safe space for Black people. So I think that when it comes to the outside world, the way in which companies, particularly tech companies, are impacting the way consumers navigate the world, they have a very unique opportunity to reach a much larger crowd and to be able to impact and educate folks. So whether it's donating to the folks who are doing the work on the ground, or simply using their brand and their platform to say, hey, this is what we stand for, and also who they do business with. Right. And so for me, when I work for companies, for example, who are, data analytics, how are we allowing folks to use our product in order to create social change and not to cause further harm? And so it's through our platforms, it's through our messaging, it's through our websites, it's through our marketing, but it's also in terms of who we do business with and how we allow people to use our product.
And I think the other thing that I will say is my two cents are, when it comes to creating products, making sure that our algorithms are not biased. Algorithms in general are not made for people who look like me. And so that's why when I report and nothing happens, but the minute someone reports me for saying Black, my post gets taken down. And on the flip side, I think we've now seen with everything happening, how many companies are using Black trauma as a PR push. I am not a way to raise brand awareness. Like, pull up or shut up. Like, I don't care how much you donated if everyone at your company is scared of you. And so I think we're now seeing this where people are really using it as like a cute Instagram opportunity. I don't want that. I want actual accomplices and allies on this mission who aren't scared to say that my life matters.
I think one example of that is that Amazon got some pushback on putting Black Lives Matter on their main page. And someone wrote Jeff Bezos an email, critiquing him on this. And he wrote back, it's all over the internet. He wrote back and said, hey, this is where we stand. These are our values. And pretty much if you would like to take your business somewhere else, that's fine. But literally I said what I said. And he stood firm in the fact that we believe in this. And I think it's that kind of action that takes it away from just a marketing performance to actual deep-rooted values and how we do business.
And see, the thing that sucks so much about that is I want to love Amazon, but he doesn't pay his Black people fairly either. He said my life matters, but not enough to pay me.
Touche.
Yeah, and I think this is a perfect example. There's so many things that you can do well, but also it's not just one area. It can't just be that one side.
It's not. Companies have to look at everything.
Are there any examples of companies you've seen who have done both sides well? So maybe not just external or just internal, both?
Madison, have you? I'm a firm believer. I don't know that perfection exists. That's my thing.
I do think Culture Amp is doing the right thing.
Yes.
Because they did bring on someone who's the head of inclusive design. Right. And I think so often our design teams are made up of white dudes and you can't design the product for me.
Right.
So I do think they are moving in the right direction for being such a well-known company.
Right. And Stephen, I think your question gets at this idea of perfection, who's got it all down pat. And I don't think there are companies and organizations that have gotten it down pat. There are companies that are making major waves and changing the way they do business. But I don't know that there's any company that's they've got it on both sides. So yeah.
I'd agree. And there's one I've been following a lot lately, Upwork. Dr. Aaron Thompson has been sharing some really good resources there. But it's interesting because, it also brings up the discussion of these kind of marketplaces that drive down and go below minimum wage work at times. So it's on one side, they're doing a lot of great work internally to help with their Black employees. But then on the marketplace side, it's kind of creating this. I don't know the data is on it, but as well, but you've seen the work, it just gets very low wages at times. And so there's definitely troubling sides on all areas of it. But I'll share her posts in here on the side. And I think we're just about done our time now. But is there any final words that either of you two would share with folks listening?
Madison?
Cornell. Or
I guess
Madison.
If you are a leader in your industry, I want you to be comfortable saying the word Black and talking about it, because right now, as you know, in the Black community, we're shouldering a lot between COVID disproportionately affecting our communities to not being sure if I can get pulled over and, you know, make it home. Be comfortable talking about that, because it is a lot to keep in, especially when you are maybe one of a couple employees who are Black at your startup. And sometimes it's nice to just have someone say, like, you good? And it not be about your work.
Absolutely. The one thing I'll add to that is that I think it's not enough to be not racist. We need anti-racist, right? We need people. And what that means is, me not being a racist is passive, and being anti-racist is active. Is that not only am I checking myself, but I'm also ready to check other people and call people in and say, that's not cool, we don't do that. And to also take on the emotional labor of educating other folks who look like you to change their behavior and check it, so that we're not putting that emotional labor on Black employees to do the teaching and, you know, the day-to-day job that they do already.
Yes. And my last thing is, it's not enough to have a Black partner, a Black friend, a Black coworker. You cannot value our lives on like a sliding scale. You need to value everyone that looks like me, no matter what they've done and who they are.
Awesome.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much for joining. And I'm going to post their LinkedIns in the chat so you can connect with them later.
Awesome. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye,